And they're struggling to find a bit of a foundation to land on because, year one under Harsin was just about the transition. What you get is what you get. We were hoping we would start laying this foundation in this offseason. It's kind of hard to do that when you continue to turn over. And I'm not a doom and gloom type of person either, but it is starting to get a little bit worrisome to see this continually happen over and over again in the offseason.
Yeah. Kyle, it's got to be a little unsettling to the Auburn fan base, you included, as somebody who's part of the fan base, but also analyzes the sport and the game and is a part of the media to a certain extent. So Derek Mason, that was the huge news before an hour ago. And even though it's kind of old news, to have a prominent defensive coordinator, of course, most recently Vanderbilt head coach, but really cut his teeth and showed his value at Stanford as a defensive coordinator, comes to Auburn to take care of the defense. Well, one season in, and then he leaves for a post that you would think on the surface is at best a lateral move to Oklahoma State.
Yeah, I would agree that it's a lateral move.
At best?
I would think that the decision for him was just, and this is stuff that I've been told and hearing and kind of being corroborated by other people in the media, that there was just a difference in philosophy between him and Harsin. And look, I think everybody could look at the writing on the wall and see that Derek Mason wasn't going to be a long-term solution for Auburn because he probably wants to get back in the head coaching game at some point. I don't fault him for his time at Vanderbilt. No offense to our Vanderbilt fans out there, but it's Vanderbilt. And, it's hard to really fault anybody for their time at Vanderbilt. So I do think that he wants to be a head coach again. So I was expecting 1, maybe 2 seasons out of him, probably just 2. But to see it happen this season during this time is kind of a little bit surprising. He was the exciting hire for Coach Brian Harsin. In fact, I think Auburn fans might have rioted if they hadn't gone and got him. But then as the season started to turn, you saw there were some questions, some rumblings. Did we make a mistake here? And I thought that was a little bit rash at the time because the entirety of that first season, everybody I thought needed to just take a deep breath and realize that this is a transition year, different philosophy schemes, all that kind of stuff. And we're switched from a 4-3 base to a 3-4 base. That in and of itself is just going to wreak havoc with the people that you've already brought in recruiting wise. To play for the 4-3 as opposed to the 3-4. So I'm sad to see Derek Mason go. It doesn't make sense to me why you would go to Oklahoma State. I've been told that he has NFL aspirations. I thought he might take a positional coach in the NFL somewhere. Maybe that wasn't available to him right now. So unfortunately, I think Oklahoma State's just another stopover point for him.
We got Kyle Loomis on the line. You can catch his work and the rest of the crew there at E2C Network right here on YouTube. And it's a complete look at Auburn athletics, correct?
Yes, it is. And we go beyond athletics too. It's the way I like to describe it is if it's orange and blue, it's what we do. It always comes back to, sports, and it always comes back to mainly football, basketball, and even baseball, those big 3 sports in college athletics. But we're going to try and do a little bit of everything. We have podcasts that go along with that, where we talk about track and field and equestrian. We've interviewed people about children's books that they wrote that have Auburn sports ties back to it that weren't even about sports. So it is always about sports. It will always get back to it, but the easy way to just say it, if it's orange and blue, it's what we do.
Very cool. Folks, please like the video, share these videos out on social media. Not everyone knows that we're here talking college football with you each and every day, and subscribe right here to the Voice of College Football. So, Kyle, the overriding picture this offseason, when you've got 5 assistants leave, and I believe 1 dismissed, the other 4 left, that it's not a good look, as it's just people wondering what's going on there when assistants are leaving before they even really coach, and even just being in the door for 1 season, obviously not having that equity in the program yet, Brian Harsin, and the credibility that comes with being somewhere and succeeding for a time period where there's trust built. It's just not a good look.
No, it's not. It's definitely not a good look. But, I try to stress this on my channel. We only operate with 25% of the information. They have they have 100% of the information. So there's 75% we're not privy to what's going on behind the scenes. And, everybody's, like I said, got sources, and we all hear the same rumors and things like that. So it's easy just to react to that and not look at stuff within the context of the situation. Is the sky falling at Auburn? No. Is it good and stable right now? No, either. They both can be the truth there. I will admit that 5 coaches leaving in the first year, not a good look. One dismissed in Cornelius Williams, one that at the time I was shocked by, honestly. Like, I remember where I was, what I was doing when that news dropped, and having to react to that and try to get some content out for it. Um, Now in hindsight, that wide receiver coach, Cornelius Williams, that we fired, it looked like the right decision, unfortunately. And I loved the hire personally. I thought he was going to be a great recruiting asset because of his ties up and down Alabama. He's been at basically every school, north, middle, south, every part of Alabama. I thought that was going to be kind of the point that we needed to kind of reestablish ourselves recruiting within the state of Alabama again. And what we have to compete against. You go to Derek Mason, we've talked about a little bit. The Mike Bobo situation, it never seemed like a marriage that was going to last, at least from the Auburn fans' eyes. I was willing to give him a little bit more time, but there wasn't much fruit for the labor that we were going through with Mike Bobo at the time. You count in that Bo Nix leaving, that kind of adds to that, the offensive line struggles. I still believe that any offensive coordinator, any quarterback would have struggled this year with Auburn's offense, no matter how good they were. And then you obviously add in several others. People forget that Tracy Rocker left, before even barely the ink was dry on him. I mean, I think that was even shorter amount of time from Austin Davis, the defensive line coach. He kind of has been at Auburn once. It was surprising that he'd come back. And this Austin Davis stuff, I think it's obviously the reactionary thing is, the sky is falling. This is the last one or the next one to go. But at the same time, most people are assuming, and I think it's pretty much common knowledge, that Brian Harsin was going to be calling plays. This is just the quarterback coach. And I don't mean that. He is the offensive coordinator in title and was probably going to give him those reins. But I don't necessarily think this loss outside of recruiting is going to really affect us all that much as of this moment. I could be wrong, but that's kind of just my initial feelings with this stuff just now breaking.
And Kyle, speaking of recruiting, there's not much to talk about in the moment,
right.
As we discussed before we started to record. Of course, the December 15th National Signing Day has taken over the recruiting cycle. 90% of the players are signed there. I do find that those programs that had a coaching transition, which Auburn does not, have a little bit more work to do typically going into February. So a little bit of good and not so good there as well. If you look at it within context, lots expected of anybody in the SEC to try to keep up with Alabama and now what Texas A&M's doing. So 7th right now in the 247 Sports Composite, according to in the SEC rankings, 18th in the country. Again, for most programs across the country, hey, that would be an excellent recruiting class. For Auburn, maybe finding themselves in the most difficult position to be in based on who else plays football in that state. Just your thoughts about Brian Harsin's recruiting efforts.
I thought he had an outstanding December with the early signing period. There was a lot of hype, a lot of momentum. Auburn was in play for a lot of recruits that they didn't even get. And that, I think, is a testament even of itself under year one. And at the time, it wasn't very tumultuous with changing out and things like that. Mike Bobo was the one but I think most people kind of had expected that. So that was very exciting, but it's kind of cooled off since then as we get to what, traditionally has been the Maine's National Signing Day. There hasn't been a lot out that we're all privy to. Everybody's hearing and seeing these official visits, and that's been happening a lot this weekend. One of the great things for Auburn is their basketball program right now is just a great recruiting tool because they bring the football players to that all the time. So if you want to have something good to think about this part of the signing period, they've at least had basketball doing really well to pitch to come. You come here, you can be part of this kind of atmosphere and go to these type of games while you're a football player here. The main things for recruiting is offensive line. My question to myself and other Auburn fans is, why are we assuming that the solution already isn't on campus, meaning that the ones that we already have? And so just because you're not seeing the offensive line coming in doesn't mean it's not being addressed. The coaches, again, have 100% of the information. We have 25%. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say that we don't need some help, because we do. I'm just willing to give them some time, assume that they have it under control, and maybe they've got a few surprises in store for us on National Signing Day that we're not privy to. And, he surprised us on early signing period, so I'm willing to give him that chance.